Hi, this is Jack Downs with a little rundown of the Premiere introduction to Premiere, our Adobe Premiere, our video editing software. This first exercise that you have, and you should have the exercise in front of you on paper. The first exercise that we have involves you doing some tutorials, answering some questions. As usual, those answers need to be typed up. And you can either put them in the Dropbox with the file you're going to have to create, the MP4 file you're going to have to create, or you could submit them on paper separately if you wish. These Dropboxes are all set to hold any number. I guess it's actually an unlimited number of files. It appears, I don't see your view as a student, it appears that some people maybe have some trouble adding additional files beyond the first one, but please try and see if you can figure it out because other people are able to do it. Also, please notice that it appears that it seems to be difficult, maybe impossible, I don't know, for you to delete a file you put in there. So if that happens, just put another one in. Okay, I can see which is the newest one. And if you want to send me an email about multiple files or something, you certainly can too. Okay, Adobe Premiere. When you first start a Premiere, I don't know, it could look different ways depending on the settings on the computer where you are. You are certainly using this either in our classroom or in a college lab because it is not expected that you will buy this software yourself as it is quite expensive. So you have to plan time to go to the big computer lab over in Feinberg, which has a number of, although it's a limited number, but a number of seats with the full Adobe suite and would have Premiere on it. This is Premiere Pro 2022. Not Premiere Rush. Or you're working in 115, or maybe you found Premiere someplace else on campus. In any case, when you start it up, there might be various, first of all, there's going to have to be a special login. The login screen, just a reminder, if you haven't used the Adobe products before, it likely will ask you for your email address first, which is your full college email address. Then it will come up with a screen that says, is this a personal or a company college account? You want the company college account choice. And then it should automatically move you to the regular SUNY Plattsburgh login. By the way, the login that you're doing only works on Adobe, so if you need to log into Brightspace, that's going to be separate. They don't seem to communicate well or at all. But one way or another, you'll get logged into the computer. I've noticed that in our classroom, sometimes it comes up kind of like a grayed out screen. Sometimes it might come up with some kind of a splash screen like this. Sometimes it might come up with a list of tutorials and things. I'm not sure how yours is going to come up. If you see any splash screens or tutorials, and if you want to look at them, you can. But those are probably not the tutorials I'm going to suggest that I want you to do. You might have a new project button. You might have this stuff grayed out. One way or the other, perhaps through the file menu, you're going to do File, New Project, or you can use the New Project button if you have one. Okay? So, and by the way, you saw I had a bunch of other projects listed. If you had your own copy, or maybe if you use a copy regularly in a certain place, you may find that your projects that you've listed are there. But when I do a File, New Project, this is the screen that you should get. And the important things you have to worry about, you can leave all the settings themselves, that's fine, but leave them alone as the defaults, but the name and the location. So I'm going to call this Jack Intro Premiere, PREM, whatever. You call yours what you want, but it should be something like that. Your name and then some part, name of the project or something like that. It's extremely important that you browse to go find your folder. You should have, of course, already made your folder you're going to put this in. You need to have a folder. I use a 3-folder system. If you think that's overkill, at least make a single folder so you can keep track of this stuff. But you need to save the project into a folder. Okay, so I'm going to go to the desktop where my stuff is, and mine is in 240. And I have a lot further to go than you probably do. There's my Premiere intro, and there is my, not original, sorry, working. That's where I want to put it. All right, and I'm going to select the folder and say, okay, name and location. Okay, and it's going to take a moment. or maybe a lot more than a moment. See? Okay. Now, when yours comes up, it'll probably not come up looking like this. All right, it'll probably come up looking something like this. Along the top here are workspaces. The tutorials you're going to do, don't use them very much at all, really. I will be making extensive use of them, and you will see in my little tutorials, and when I show you in class, I will use them. The learning workspace, which I've just clicked on, gives you access to these tutorials. And these are the tutorials I want you to use. Premiere Pro Overview, Learn the Basics, and Skills and Projects. Okay? And you'll see this was 2 minutes, 15 minutes, 16 minutes. So it's not that long. So you should plan to do those. Through those, you will be able to answer in step 4 questions 1 through 10. So please do that. You will learn a lot of basics in there, and it's all very good. I will be doing things a little differently too, and that's okay too. So answer those questions, type them up, make a document, throw it into the Dropbox, or print it and bring it into class, whatever. Okay, so eventually though, you're going to get done those, and you have to move on to the very, very minimal editing assignment I've given you. And for that, you probably want to go to the editing or the assembly area. Assembly is fine. It just lets you, it's a huge area to drop your files into. Editing is what I tend to use because we have an area to drop the files, and we get this source window and this program window, and we get a timeline too. I've noticed that in the lab sometimes, or in our classroom, some things can be obscured by the taskbar somewhat. So sometimes you have to move things up a little bit, or make sure that this is maximized. I don't know, we'll have to keep an eye on that. If you don't seem to be able to get like the OK or cancel button sometimes, you have to move things around to get to them a little bit because they may be obscured in our classroom, or maybe the labs too, I don't know. Okay, well, all I've asked you to do is go to Brightspace, get 2 files, put them in your folders. I've already done that. I put mine in the originals. They're called Boys, BHOYS, and Kayak. All right, why are they coming up slightly different icons? I don't know. You're going to drag either one or separately, or you could use the method you learn in the tutorials by double-clicking in here and finding the media. I'm going to drag and drop, which is another way to bring things into the program. I drag and drop them here into this media bin, media browser area here, right? Project media. And I could hover over these and see what they are. And in fact, I move around my cursor, I can see them kind of move a little bit. I could double-click on any of these, and it would appear in my source panel, and I could do things here. We don't tend to use this a lot, but you could look at it and so on. But I'm just going to go quickly and drag and drop one right into my timeline. And there it goes. All right, and now would be a good time for you to watch it. And I'm not going to take time to do that, but you'll see it's about 2 minutes long. But I tell you only want 5 seconds. I suggested in the instructions that you want 5 seconds when my kayak comes into view to leave, and 5 seconds when it's coming back. If I take my scrubber and move along, I can see where the kayak starts to appear, and there it is right there. So I would say someplace in here is where I'm going to want the clip to start. How do I make the clip start there? Hover over the end, and I drag, and boom, that's where it's starting now. Did I damage the original in any way? No, I did not. This just changes, it's just non-destructive, non-linear editing, so it just says now this clip here on my timeline starts here, although the original is undamaged. And I can move it back to the front, but I only want 5, and so if I go back here with my cursor, that's where I am. Okay, good. All right, so I only want 5 seconds of that. That's tiny because it's still so huge. How do I zoom in to see that? Well, one thing, I could grab this, the end of the scroll bar. This is a scroll bar. Grab the end and make it shorter. Will allow me to zoom in. There isn't any, like in Audacity, select and zoom to the window area. And then I could start to make this smaller. Okay, could I make it longer? It's not going to let me easily make it longer than it is. Okay, so that's the thing. It has a certain length already. There is a way to make a clip go longer than it is and loop it, make it repeat. We won't worry about that right now. So I'm going to bring mine back in. So I'm back. I'm at the very beginning. Yes, I'm going to bring it back in. So I'm going to want a lot less than this, and I can zoom in a little more even, and I can start to see where 5 seconds would be about, somewhere in here, right? But I could also see my cursor, my scrubber, if I want to, I can put it at about 5 seconds. I see the time reading off here and here, right? So I can put my my scrubber at about 5 seconds. 5:05 is plenty close enough, and close it up. Okay, good. So I got 5 seconds of this clip, and I come into the picture, and then I'm right there. Yeah, sure, and that's all there is of it. Okay, good. And the sound is very little sound in it. This next clip is going to be a lot noisier. I'm going to grab the boys clip. I want 5 seconds of that. How will I make 5 seconds? Will it be 5 seconds in the middle or the start? I'll let you decide that. You could close it up at one end. You could close it up at the other end. You could find something in the middle. You could find 5 seconds. That's a lot more than 5 seconds right now, right? Okay. And by the way, anytime I could select a clip, all right, if I select a clip and double click on it, yeah, if you're there, if I select a clip, right click on it and choose speed duration, then I will get a duration of 5 seconds. I can always go look at it there. All right. So that's another thing I can do to view the length of something, speed duration. So I'm going to pretend I know what I'm doing. I'm going to close this up to about 5 seconds. But 5 plus 5 is 10. That's about 10 is going to be about somewhere around here. Somewhere like that. Okay, good. So that's going to be a very noisy clip, by the way. Just prepare your ears for it. And then I'm going to have another one. I'm going to drag, and this is to show you that I could drag my kayak out again. Notice something here that's happened. I've got my kayak clip. I've got my boys clip. But what is this? This is a sequence that was created. It was created when I first dragged and dropped kayak out there. In fact, if it bothers me that it's called kayak, I could change it. I could say intro sequence. Intro SEQ, and hit enter or tab, and that would take effect. This is its way of keeping track of files, so it's part of the project, actually, the sequence. And by the way, to create the sequence, we would always it's created from the first file that is dragged and dropped on the timeline, although you could create them separately and manually yourself. So you want to make sure the first file you drag and drop on the timeline, if you're using that to create the sequence, is a file that's has the same kind of settings as most of the video that you're working with. So essentially, it sort of sets the settings. So if you've got a chunk of really old, nasty video that you're not sure about the resolution or anything, don't use that to create the sequence. If you have a still image, who knows how that's going to work, right? Don't use that to create the sequence. Use your base video. In this case, these two pieces of video are very similar. So it'd be fine to use either one of them to create the sequence. And we just use the first one, which makes sense. Okay, and so I wanted you to notice that I can take any clip and bring it out multiple times. I would want a second, 5 seconds now, and I have to go find it. I'll let you do that. I'm going to delete that for now. You can delete things off from here, and it doesn't delete the originals. If I delete them from here, it deletes them out of the project. I could delete the sequence, and then I would lose all the work I did. All right, so I'm going to imagine that you've continued this and finished it, and you save your project as you go. Please do that. And then you are ready to export it. And you can go File, Export, Media, or Control-M is the same thing. I just want to bring to your attention, as I do in the instructions, a few important points here. First of all, the format. As you did in the tutorials, I want you to use H.264. And I want you to change the bit rate to match source medium. Okay? And then this is very important. The output name. It's going to use where the name of one of the clips is. I'm not sure. I guess the last one placed or something like that, or the one that's selected or something like that. But what we really want is we want to give it our own name, but we need to give it location too. And both name and location are you get access by clicking on this, because it's going to go to a strange place. I don't know where, and I'm going to have to go to my Premiere Intro. I'm going to go to Grading. I'm going to tell it to call this. Not boys, but I want to save it as, this is where you change the name and the location. We change this to Jack Intro. That'll be fine, Jack Intro. And I'm going to say save. And I'm going to change it from source range, entire clip. That would be okay to do. If there's a choice in here that ever says entire sequence, that's okay to do also. Actually, you know what? That is a problem, isn't it? Huh, interesting. I have selected this clip at the moment, but I really want the sequence. Or if my cursor, if I had it out here selected, that would be okay. Because when I go to Control M, I want to have the option of sequence in and out, or entire sequence. I want entire sequence. So yes, if you've just intentionally selected an individual clip over here, that's going to be a problem. You want to be able to have access to entire sequence, right? And again, my output name is stuck the same, and my output location is changed. Oh, that's great. Make sure the location, so you can find your file again, and say save. And yes, that's right, that's right. What are these choices down here? Don't do Q. That way, if you had a whole bunch of things you're going to set up to render and take a long time, and export and take a long time. You can ignore all the other settings, by the way, and just say export. And this is very tiny, so it's going to go very fast. Now it gives me a moment to say, hey, when you're working on bigger real projects, what are some things you would do? You would always first, by the way, it's shown me that it was exported successfully. But was it? Well, to be sure. You would always restart the computer. You'd always make sure you didn't have any other programs open beyond what you really needed. You would make sure you're working off the hard drive of the computer and not off your flash drive. Those are all good things to do before you get into editing of any big project. This was a very tiny one, right? So I did this stuff. Am I all set? Do I just go and throw that up on Brightspace? No, I do not. I'm going to go find the file, and here it is, and I want you to watch it outside of the program to make sure you really got what you wanted. Make sure that the file is correct. We're mostly looking for, did it fully render? Was there any problems on the export? So make sure you view the file outside the program. You could do that by double-clicking on it or do a right-click and choose a player, like VLC is one here, but there's other ones you may have access to different places, and just watching it. So that's all for this explanation of the intro assignment for Premiere.